Oh my god, what have they done? This is Convoke the Spirits, a new 10 mana druid spell. It's going to cast 8 random druid spells with targets chosen randomly, and you might have seen this at 10, but I guess this one got nerfed already between the card reveal being sent out and today. So it's down to 8, but this is still that sort of Yogg style effect. Of course, we've seen many times. Yogg's Puzzle Box is probably the most directly similar, but in this case, it's Druid spells. And if you look at the Druid spell pool currently in standard format, and there's a card here you're going to talk about later in this video, so don't be alarmed, it's pretty good. And most of these aren't things that will naturally backfire. There are some that can, like, you know, buff your opponent's minions because of the random targeting, but many of these are just universally going to work because they affect either your board or your hero in some sort of positive way. And on average, you're going to end up with a good board. You're going to end up summoning quite a few minions. You're going to end up either generating or drawing at least a few cards, it looks like. You're not going to be particularly good at removing your opponent's stuff. That is the one, I think, huge downside to this card compared to other iterations and examples we've seen of this in the past. You know, there's not like flame strikes in here that are really good removal cards like there might be for mage, for instance. So you're often going to be hoping to play this, I think, in a little bit more of a proactive fashion when you're a little bit of ahead on board or your opponent doesn't have the craziest board state. This is the kind of card that fits then because you build your own threats, you generate some resources. It's when you have that little bit more of a window that I think Convoke the Spirits will be a really compelling play. If you're just dead in the water, this is far less likely to save you than other cards of this style, like the Rune of the Archmages, the puzzle boxes, and so on. In fact, I think it would rarely only ever kill a couple things of your opponents just from random wraths and stuff going off. Taking out an entire board seems incredibly unlikely. Even if you get something like Scale of Onyxia, which is probably the best board clear tool available for Druid, trading in all the whelps, it may be like the 5th spell and you may have already summoned 5 minions on board, right? So even that has a pretty good chance to whiff unless it hits early in the cycle. Now, that said, you know, Druid is a class where that's probably okay. They're going to be playing this much sooner if they're ramping up to it, right? So using it as a board development and swing tool might just work. They may not really be in that much trouble by the time a card like this comes into play. Also, they just might have enough life gain along the way, or just, you know, taunts getting in the way, that it's kind of fine. It's just going to stabilize, and that's okay. So maybe not quite as powerful of a swing tool as some of these other options, but still good. And this is also a way to just cheat out like Celestial Alignment. You're going to get Celestial Alignment off this pretty often. So the one thing that's better about this than something like Rune of the Archmage, right, is that it's not mana capped, it's spell capped. And Druid has a lot of really expensive spells, so you could get a ton of mana worth of stuff. You could get a couple Best in Shells for some 2/7 taunts. That's going to help you stabilize. You could get that Celestial Alignment to shut down your opponent and give them only 1 single mana while still playing lots of stuff. And the cool thing is Celestial Alignment, usually when you play it, that's kind of one of the only things you're really doing in a turn if you're playing it really early. With this, you play a Celestial Alignment and you might still have a gigantic board to go with it because Convoke the Spirits delivered both, essentially. So all in all, I mean, I still think this is a very powerful card. There will be versions of Druid that are able to use this to great effect. And, you know, as we get other spells, it could get worse because it could get less consistent. Maybe there could be some risky downside cards in here, but it also could actually get better. Add in like 1 or 2 kind of small board clears or minion-based removal, and Convoke the Spirits could actually improve over time as well. Nonetheless, a very dramatic card that's going to be talked about, perhaps hated a lot. I actually kind of like cards like this. I'm going to have a lot of fun with Convoke the Spirits. And then next up for Druid, we also got the Nightshade Bud. I think the Bud has been passed around quite a bit at Blizzard this set. How did we end up with Topior the Shrubagazor? I'll never know. This is an 8-mana spell for Druid. Another big one here that might get played off of Convoke the Spirits and get you a lot of effect. It's going to choose one. It's discover a minion from your deck to summon or a spell to cast. So you're getting a couple things here. You're getting to choose the card you want. So finding something really important and pulling it into play with a little bit more consistency, because this is kind of like if you ran two of these two extra versions of that Lady Anacondra or that Celestial Alignment or whatever other key card that you're looking for that doesn't demand battle cries and such, but extra redundancy basically to help you find those. And then beyond that, of course, is you can just play really big stuff off this well if you wanted to and cheat some of that into play. It's not much, but you know, technically a 10 mana card being played off Nightshade Bud could be a little bit of a mana cheat as well. But of course, if you want this to work well, you're gonna have to stuff your deck with big stuff, because if you have a bunch of 2 mana spells and 2 mana minions, quite clearly Nightshade Bud's not gonna pay off. You don't want to spend 8 mana to summon some sort of 2 mana thing or cast a 2 mana thing. So it's gonna be scenarios where you have really key things you're looking for or really big things you're looking for, where Nightshade Bud shines the most. I should also note that there are some choose one synergies here. We've got choose one cards that can like repeat a choose one effect for 3 mana with Pathmaker. If you guys remember the Pathmaker, I'm pulling it up here real quick, right? So this can kind of be, you know, a 3 mana card that now summons you a 10-drop if you want. So, because if you get a spell first and then you take the Pathmaker, or Cheetza Convoke the Spirits into play for 3 mana. So these high cost choose one cards actually have some other payoffs in Druid that exist that haven't really been seen a lot or utilized a lot, but are still there waiting for these big time choose one effects to make sense. You could also see this going in something like a Cecily deck. Remember Cecily that got revealed, I guess, yesterday? I don't know, time's flying by, but you know, this encourages you to run a lot of big minions and cheat a lot of big minions into play. So Cecily and a lot of other big stuff alongside a Nightshade Bud could be a way to get some of those big minions out really reliably, including the Cecily itself. Of course, though, this is pretty limited. You know, it's only certain kinds of decks are going to care about this. A fairly narrow focus for this one, I think. Might be more important that it exists for Convoke the Spirits and so on, and might make a cut in something like Celestial Druids. I think I could see that working rather nicely. But outside of that, you know, probably not the broadest utilization for a card like this. Many decks will say, nah, that just doesn't really work for what we're trying to do. So a focused card, a specific one, but still one with a lot of high potential power. And then we also have a new priest spell. It's Clean the Scene, a 5 mana removal spell. It's a holy spell. It's going to destroy all minions with 3 or less attack. And then with Infuse 3, it's going to upgrade and it's going to kill all minions with 6 or less attack. That includes your own. But yeah, I think an interesting little board clear here. I will say at a base level for 3, this is a little iffier in the mid game because your opponent could definitely have some 4/4s and 5/5 type minions out by the time Clean the Scene hits on turn 5. But honestly, there are a lot of other board states where this will still just clear everything you need. There have historically been tons of 3/3s and 3/5s in Rogue, and Demon Hunter's had a bunch of like 2/2s and 1/1s, and we're seeing all these like imp builds for Warlock with a bunch of 1/1s and 2 attack imps and 3 attack imps and so on. And although, yeah, Demon Hunter got some 7/7s and stuff that might challenge this, across the board, there are still plenty of board states historically in Hearthstone that still fit the shape of this rather nicely on turn 5 at a base level. So I think it's actually solid at a base level. And then once you infuse this, it's really good. This is going to be a board clear in the mid game and beyond for a long time, right? This actually still deals with all kinds of different shapes of boards. And really for both halves of this still works well against certain colossals, like, you know, Z-Log dies to the first half still, Glug dies to the first half pre-infuse, and then post-infuse there's still a lot of colossals that would get eaten by this. Not all, but still quite a few, you know, like a Gaia for instance dies to the first half, so, or second half, excuse me. So, you know, there's still a lot of shapes and sizes that Clean the Scene handles well. Now, I don't think Priest is typically going to be the best infuse activator, but this also has a bit of a lower infuse goal than a lot of cards did. And I don't think it's insane for a questline Priest or a control Priest to have you know, thrown out a few speed bump minions in the early game, stuff that just like discovers or a little taunt or something, and getting this to infuse by turn 5, turn 6, turn 7 is not going to be especially likely if it unlikely if it starts your opening hand. It's going to happen, and it's going to handle a lot of board states. So I think this is actually a fairly high utility removal card. Even when you top deck, it's still going to have some use cases, still going to have some value in the mid game. May not last forever, but still pretty good against aggressive decks especially. And then Infuse makes this really solid. This is going to handle a lot of different board states, and I think Priest has actually needed a card like this in standard format for a bit now. So Clean the Scene looks really nice to me. I think this is a fun little removal card that works fairly well. Convoke the Spirits is a 4-star card. Nightshade Bud is a 3-star card. Clean the Scene is a 4-star card. And there you go, folks. One more review in the books. What do you think about Convoke the Spirits? You're going to hate this card. You're going to love it. I want to hear those thoughts and more in the comments below. But until then, thanks so much for watching. And until next time, pump on.